Hello, we are gathered here together because Paul McCartney has released his first solo album for 10 years. That is an album without Wings, or indeed without any group. And I'm here to talk to Paul about it and one or two other McCartney things, which is very nice for me, and I hope it'll be nice for Paul. Paul, good evening, hello, welcome, and other expressions of greeting.
Good evening, Tom.
Why have you done a solo album at this stage of your career, having not done one?
I couldn't think of anything else to do, actually, Tim. No, seriously, folks.
I mean, it's called McCartney 2, which
Yeah.
implies to me that it's perhaps a follow-up to McCartney 1, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Is it a follow-up, or are you...
Yeah, sort of, yeah. What happened was I originally just went into the studio to have a mess around, because I was fed up of formally making records, you know, going in and doing it all properly. I'd just made an album like that, and I wanted to just hire a machine, which I did. I hired a 16-track machine and just put a microphone into the back, so it's a very primitive way of doing it. And you bypass the mixing console. And I wanted to just go in for like about 2 weeks and just have a mess around and definitely not do anything for a new album, and definitely not try and do anything properly, and definitely experiment with anything, you know, and just any little noise I wanted to do. This was going to be total freedom. And I ended up, I kind of enjoyed it so much that I ended up keeping the machine for about 6 weeks. And eventually when I played it to a couple of people, you know, just family and local people and stuff, they said, yeah, you know, take a couple of tracks off here and there and it should be your new album.
So it's possible that it perhaps couldn't have ever got released. You might have failed with the experiment and just left it on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah, but that was all it was for, really. It was just for, I've got a cassette machine in my car, and when I'm driving around, you know, I like to have kind of something playing. So I just thought the worst come to the worst. Actually, I'll just have a nice little funky bit of music for me to play in the car, you know, when there's a friend in the car and say, listen to this, you know. And just as a private little thing, you know, if it wasn't good enough to be released. So that was, like, half of the enjoyment was knowing it wasn't going to be released.
But it was.
Which it was, unfortunately.
But you were also, therefore, the engineer, the producer, the artist, everything.
Yeah.
Do you find that if, for example, you're the engineer, that you perhaps feel that Paul McCartney, the engineer, has to be seen to be doing something on this record, so maybe on occasions you're giving more time to the technique and to the electronics than you are to the actual songs? No,
well, see, if I'd have been doing it, if I'd have known in the end an album was going to come out where I would have on the credits engineered, written, produced, and so on, so by, then I would have probably got worried about those things and thought, well, you know. In fact, at one time I was thinking of including a little apology to all real engineers and real drummers and real guitar players. But as I say, it was just a loon for me. So it didn't even occur to me I was engineering it. I just had a machine. And the 16-track machine, which is like a glorified cassette recorder, but it's a professional machine. Microphone right into the back of it. And then I would record, let's say, a drum kit, and I'd just listen to it back. And if I didn't like it, I'd just move the microphone, because I didn't have all the technical EQs and echoes and all the gimmicks. So I just had to move the mic. So it wasn't exactly engineering, you know.
Yeah.
It was more like moving mics, really.
Do you think that song-wise it, in fact, causes a great departure for you? Because to the totally uninitiated, they would say, well, it still sounds like Paul McCartney and a rock group. I mean, do you think, in fact, that artistically, in the end, it's in fact made much difference?
I don't know, really. I'm probably not the person to ask about that. In my opinion, yeah, I think there is something different about it. We had some other recordings that we were working on. Actually, it was the live version of Coming Up, and the solo version is off this. And we were working with an engineer, and he listened. We'd been working on mixing the live one. We'd been working on it for half an hour or so. And then I said, wait a minute, I'll just play you this other one. And he got a totally different feeling off the solo one to the live one.
Yeah.
The live one sounded like stuff you might expect. The solo thing, I think there's just a lot of things I wouldn't have done, a lot of raw edges, a lot of silly sounds that I just did for my own amusement, that normally I might think, well, you know, that's just a bit of a goof, and we'll straighten this all up later. So I think there is something different about it. I mean, I wouldn't argue the point, but for me there's probably something a little bit different.
But most of the numbers you've been quoted as saying, in fact, were almost made up as you went along, and only perhaps Waterfalls, that was the only one which was actually a song before you went to record it.
Yeah. that's true.
Whereas with, say, the last Wings album, that wasn't true. You would have gone in with most of the songs ready.
Yeah. Well, that was, as I say, that's true. That's why I did it this way, because I would just turn up in the morning, bang a couple of drums, because I knew I felt like banging a couple of drums. But I didn't know where I was going to go from there.
Do you think there's any significance in the fact that most people will probably say, and already are saying, that Waterfalls is the best song on the album, in fact, one of the best songs you've done for a long time? Do you think that possibly, purely from the song point of view, that it is best to have the song before you start recording?
Yeah, it may be, actually. As I say, you know, this wasn't intended to be an album. I have a feeling now that, like, there's some interesting things on it. Certainly people haven't come up to me and said, oh, you can tell. That's the only... I mean, if in a way, I don't need to tell you that. You know, I could say, yeah, I wrote them all, and actually Tony Brabham engineered it all. It's all been done professionally. But it could be right. Could be. It's definitely the way I've always done it. But this was purposely to get things off my chest doing this album. Now, I really felt as though I was just going to be bored if I just walked into another studio, the same old thing again, and wrote some songs. It was just something I had to do.
Right.
You know, I had to go for a jog.
The reason I like Waterfalls best, I think, is partly because it has a strong lyric, very good lyric, and it seems to me that throughout your career, your greatest songs have always been the ones with the best lyrics, and the ones that I don't go absolutely bananas about, very few, I hasten to are usually the ones with the not-so-strong lyrics. And do you, in fact, as a songwriter of both words and music, regard one side as more important than the other? Which comes first?
No, I think they're both as important as each other. Myself, I don't really feel like a lyricist, but I think at certain times I've done some good words. I feel easier with music. It's just the way I am, you know. It comes easier, comes quicker. I can go away kind of now and have a song before I could have a set of words, whereas with you, you'd have a set of words before you'd have a tune. Possibly.
Well, possibly, yes. I'm a slightly different case because I can't write tunes anyway. But
well, I'm right then.
Yes, but I do feel that certainly in the case of some of your very famous old songs, like Yesterday, Here, There and Everywhere, For No One, the lyric is so strong, and I often wonder if the really strong lyrical idea inspired those great tunes. I mean, the tunes are obviously very good as well.
No, it's all with me. It's in truth, it can be anyway. You know, because interviewers over the years have always asked which comes first, music or something, and you always have to say, well. And I remember all my loving was a words thing. I just wrote it on a coach and I had those words and then I put a tune to it. But most of my stuff isn't like that. Most of my stuff, it's a tune looking for words. And
do you think on a song like, say, Band on the Run, you might have missed out on a standard, if that matters, simply because the words are fairly obscure and aren't instantly accessible?
Well, you know, but I don't know really. I mean, I don't write for that really. I just sort of comes into my head and stuff, and if it pleases me. I mean, you're talking about this album saying there's not a lot of stuff that's very good lyrics. So you've got one or two. No, but there are one or two that stick out for you. So some of the ones like you won't like or may not like. I mean, there's a song there called Nobody Knows, which there's no way you could look at it as a set of lyrics and think that is strong lyrics.
Because
but for me, actually, the
12-bar boogie, really, isn't it?
Yeah, but still, for me, I like the words on that. I mean, they're very simple. A lot of them have been done before. They don't actually say an awful lot, except they say nobody knows. And actually, the more you think about that, the more you think about all the millions of experts we have on the telly every night or everywhere telling us how to do it. And a year later, they're wrong, or they're out of office, or the world isn't flat after all. And so I attach like a lot of importance to just that idea of nobody knows, and that's the way I like it, just so nobody knows. It wouldn't be seen as a really good lyric, but you see the way I'm thinking of it, I think it is a good lyric. But it's in a, I approach a lot of stuff in that funny kind of roundabout way, you know, rather than just looking at it and saying, that's a great bit of poetry. There's like other reasons why I think things make good words, you know.
Do you feel you have any message to give to the world through your songs, or are you just saying what you feel like saying at any one particular time?
The second part.
Whatever
I'll come
it was.
back next week. I don't really think of like having a message or anything, but I think occasionally messages do come out. I think nobody knows. That's one of the reasons I like it. is when I first did it, I thought, oh no, that's a bit of a throwaway, you know, but then I was listening to it and thinking, no, it's not, you know, the fact that nobody knows is quite interesting, really. It's quite a new idea.
Yeah.
Actually.
I mean, too, of course...
One of these days is sort of talking about, if I can move to one of these days swiftly, that's talking about one of these days when my feet are on the ground.
Well, that's something everybody can instantly relate to use an overused phrase. But, and of course, two or three of them, well, two in fact, are instrumentals anyway, so they have no lyrical content at all.
But one of them nearly did have some lyrics.
Which one was that?
There's one called Frozen Jap, or in Japan it's called Frozen Japanese.
Now, is that, one has to ask this, is that in any way related to your slight problems in Japan?
No, it was done beforehand. All of this stuff was done summer of '79. And then my Japanese holiday took place in 1980, beginning of 1980. And that is a bit unfortunate, that, because it will be seen by some people as to be a bit of a Frozen Jap. But actually, it's a working title that stuck. When I did the tune, I was always imagining having sort of and all of that on it, you know, because this was I was just doing this for my own insanity, you know, I wasn't thinking of it as a record. And I like doing all that, you know, that sort of funny Japanese singing. But I couldn't think of a title for it. I was hoping it would be called, hoping I could think of something like, you know, Crystalline Wonder Around Mount Fuji. Or I was looking for something short, but that said that, you know, that postcard you see of winter in Japan with Mount Fuji with the snow on the top. Snow-capped Fuji, you know, it might have been called, or something like that. I was looking for something pretty. But I couldn't think of anything, so to remind myself what it was all about, I just wrote down on the books Frozen Jap, meaning, you know, frozen, that's the ice, and Jap, it's vaguely oriental. And it stuck, you know, and I was working with other people, and they kind of, you know...
And you weren't tempted to change the title at the last minute?
So, I wasn't going to change it, but it turned out that in Japan, the word Jap is, like, still thought of as being very derogatory. Although I think over here it's been diffused a lot. I think, like, the man who's got a clothes firm, who's a Japanese guy who calls himself Jap, he calls the clothes firm Jap. I think things like that have brought it, for me, a little bit more into line with Yank and Limey and Pom. You know, they're not as offensive as, like, Wop, and there are certain ones that are well offensive, Yid, you know, and those are the ones you don't use. And I think the Japanese think that Jap is still in that kind of thing. For me, it's becoming a borderline case, because of a lot of Japanese in the West, their own attitude to it. So anyway, out of not wanting to kind of do a snub to anybody who might be offended, in Japan we've called it Frozen Japanese. This is a little bit timid, you know, but
might as well,
rather than offend anyone.
Yes. What is your, if it's possible for someone in your situation, what's your inspiration to write? I mean, it must be very difficult for you to have any material ambitions.
Yeah, but it's never really been a material ambitions, you know. I mean, I remember we did used to sit around when we were just starting, and we'd started to get our glimpse of number ones. And we did sit around and kind of think, okay, now we'll write a swimming pool.
Yes.
You know, let's write a swimming pool. Now let's write the garage, and let's write a car to go in it, you know. But that was never really the big incentive. I don't think that's what made us write the songs. So now that part of the incentive isn't particularly there, you know, because I've got the car and the garage and that. But I don't really think it was ever what I was writing for, or else I probably wouldn't write now, if I didn't feel like that. I sort of write because I can't help it, and because it's a bit of a hobby still for me. It's something that, if I'm in the mood, I really like to just go and do, you know.
So is it true to say that you don't really have any concrete ambitions now? You don't think, well, I'd like to get into a totally different field of writing, maybe you'd like to write...
Yeah, I do, you know, I have a lot of ambitions. The awkward thing is, whenever I do interviews, someone says that, you know, what's left,
next?
Paul?
Yes.
You know, what's left?
Well, I think...
Or the other one is, Paul, if, just if, that's the other question. It's a little bit of an in-joke, that one. No, but, sorry, I've got off the track. What were we talking about?
Well, this, for example, getting back to the solo album, in one sense, you know, with great respect to everything you've said, it's still basically Paul McCartney working in the field of contemporary rock music, which is great, because it's among the best contemporary rock music you can get. But do you ever think you'd like to explore totally new avenues and perhaps try and write within the context of theatre or film, or have yourself with just an orchestra as opposed to anything that's basically rock and roll? I mean,
yeah, you know, I'm sort of interested in that, like for the first time, really. Beginning to realise that I might enjoy doing that. I think if you start off in a group and you're not a solo performer, you just get used to working in a group format, and it is handy because people will tell you where you're going wrong, and you get your own built-in critics and stuff. But yeah, I have been getting quite interested in the idea of maybe doing something just different. I've always had at the back of my mind, you know, this idea to kind of do something like a musical, but generally, like, I don't like musicals.
yes.
They give me a sore bum. I kind of sit down, you know, and kind of, I get very aware of, like, oh, let's get out of here, you know, after a couple of hours. And it's very rare that one works for me.
They usually last about a couple of hours.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not...
Well, you know what I mean, though. I mean,
yes.
You know, I don't think I'm alone in that. I think a lot of people going to theatre, but at the end of it, are very aware of, like, having a sore bum. And it always kind of made me think, well, there must be something that's going wrong. There must be some premise or something that just isn't quite working. And I've always wanted to be able to crack that and have myself or people come out of the show thinking, you know, I never once thought of my bum.
I'm sure there must be the odd show
Oh,
here and there.
there are, yeah. I mean, West Side Story was a biggie for me that got me all the way through, you know, film and stage version. But...
because you have, in fact, business-wise, ventured into the field of those kind of songs by...
yeah, the older ones.
Yep.
Yeah, mainly we have a lot of older songs. I love those. I mean, that's all, to me, that's all sort of Fred Astaire and Pearl Bailey and all those people who I love. I love a lot of that stuff. I was brought up on a lot of that, yeah.
Do you think you're actually getting better or getting different or getting worse as a songwriter, and do you care? I mean, do you think, good heavens, this is about as good as Rubber Soul, or it's about as good as Band on the Run, or it's better than Speed of Sound, or do you not think that at all?
I don't know. I suppose we're being brutally honest. I wouldn't think I was getting better, but I'd put a lot of that down to just paranoia. I think, like, always, if I go to the moment, like when I was writing what I might think were better songs, I know then I still didn't think I was much good. So I never really have thought I was much good. It's kind of what keeps me going, really.
How much control do you have over the songs that emerge? I mean, you were saying that in America, the live version of Coming Up is the single, which is a big hit there.
Yeah.
And over here, it's the studio, if one can call it that version. Yeah. Was it your choice to put different versions in different territories?
No.
Or did it just emerge?
I'm not really quite sure of whose choice that was. The record company tell me it was the DJ's, man, and the reaction was for the live one, so I don't know.
Because it always baffled me that Malakin Tower was a
believe
comparative flop in America. It seemed to me that the wrong side was being pushed. Girls' School was the one promoted there.
Well, this is what I mean about the kind of inexactness of it all. You know, it's like, am I writing better now? Am I writing better then? What's right? What's wrong? What record to release? What single and stuff? I'm never really sure of any of that, and I never have been. We always used to kind of ask our producer, "You think it'll be a hit?" You know, and sort of. I've never really been a person who I've not met any people who've been amazingly positive and said that's definitely going to be a hit. It happens once or twice, but you really know it's going to be a hit.
Do you think?
But I find the whole thing pretty inexact. So what I just do most of the time is just carry on, and just always be trying to do something better. Sometimes it's a flop, or sometimes like it'll be a major hit in like Britain, Germany, Australia, and certain Canada and certain places. And it just won't do anything in another territory. I don't know anyone who knows all those answers. You know, I've not met one person who knows exactly what to release, where and when. So I just look at it this way.
Than you would if you were not Paul McCartney, or if you were somebody perhaps on a...
Like Tim Rice or somebody?
Yes, somebody on my humble level. Do you think people are afraid to say, that Paul is not very good, or that's great, and you think, are they saying it because they think that's what I want, you know, to hear?
I think so. I think that happens, yeah.
And are you able to see through that? I
sometimes,
you can't tell, really.
Sometimes, you know, sometimes you can see through it, sometimes you can't. I mean, I'm not looking for any kind of absolute answers.
Yes.
You know.
Could you ever see yourself working with someone like George Martin, for example, again?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I could see myself working with like anyone again. I definitely don't have any feelings against anyone or so. I could definitely see myself working with George. Yeah. He'd tell me if something's wrong. But I'm not. I mean, you know, I'm again. It's not that everyone yeses me. I'm just giving you sort of. Probably it comes down on that side. Probably yes. People are a little bit wary. I heard a fellow on the radio the other day, in fact, the program you were on, where he was saying, well, Paul McCartney must have a better musical ear than I have. Therefore, it's a little difficult for me to comment. Which is like, I know what he means.
Yeah.
But he was being asked to comment, and you need to put that aside. You know, it's easier if you... Because I don't actually mind. I don't mind being told I'm wrong. I quite like it, actually. I feel more sane. I really don't like to get into that position where everyone's yesing you.
Yes.
And amongst our own stuff and in the office and stuff, I will always ask anyone, like, look, you know, if you hate it, just tell me. So I feel much more comfortable.
And do they do that?
Yeah.
So
it depends on the people, you know, it's not an exact absolute thing. Not everyone goes, we hate it. You know, somebody will yes me. Yes. But I think the important people don't yes me.
In the next 5-10 years, is there a chance, as you were saying, in fact, just before we came on the air, that you would become less observed and more an observer? Would you like to stand back a bit from the whole business and not be permanently in the goldfish bowl?
Yeah, it's just, I'd never thought of things that way, you know, but then occasionally you just spot a few people and you just sort of think, well, they never do much, you know. They obviously don't have a good time. Then you look at them again and they're having a great time because they're watching all the people who are doing everything, you know. And it's just, I just think it's a great angle, that.
But you must have a basic instinct to perform, because you do seem to enjoy turning up on things like this, and you do enjoy being seen, and you're very good at chatting to people. Even back in the Beatles days, you were always regarded as the one who's good with the press. I mean, do you in fact think that in your heart of hearts, when you're 64 and beyond, you'll still be doing it?
I think I probably will, yeah. But it was just something we were talking about. As I say, I think it's nice to become an observer. Maybe all I'm talking about is that I'll be more of an observer. Because again, I don't think that means that you can't talk. It's just, I think it's a good idea. I think a lot of smart people take time to talk sometimes, but not all the time. I think you can get a bit crazy if you're just always talking and making your opinion felt all the time. Because it's nice just sometimes to just kind of sit back and think, right, I said my bit, now look, what's he got to say now?
Yes.
And I just beginning to enjoy that a bit more than I ever used to. Probably because it just never occurred to me to listen to other people.
And do you have any plans at all to ever leave England? It's a parochial question, but...
No.
I mean, you're permanently stationed here. I mean, you can't see yourself zipping off and basing yourself in the States to work on it.
I can't see myself doing it. No, I've been advised to do it in the past when the taxation was so high in Britain that it was...
Yeah, Paul.
Not worth... Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were busy.
Oh, it's...
Talk. Hello, Tim, how are you? All right?
Very well.
Oh, great to see you.
Is it time up?
Don't say anything, we go late. We got to think... Sorry.
That's okay.
You're chatting.
We got to go back, have we?
No, I'll tell you what, we've got the garden party at Buckingham Palace this afternoon.
Oh, God.
Then we've got drinks at the Baron Fleet Rothschild. And then we've got dinner with Frank Zeffirelli. Anyway, nice to see you. All right?
All right, mate, yeah.
And so, as we are late...
Sorry about this, Tim.
It's okay, I can understand.
Listen.
It's just one of those things, you know.
Hey, you're not going dressed like that, are you?
Well, I'm not. I'll get dressed up when we leave.
Come on.
Sorry, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, we got to go now.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Tim.
mate.
See you, Ben.
Yes, pleasure.
Whoops. Sorry. Where are you?
My thanks to Paul McCartney. You bum.